Today is the 27th day of the month of Teves. We're in the middle of chapter 46, discussing all sorts of non-kosher foods. Today we'll be finishing the chapter, going from paragraph 41 through paragraph 46. We're also going to start chapter 47, going from paragraph 1 through paragraph 7. In chapter 47, we'll be discussing laws of non-kosher wine which is touched by a non-Jew. So chapter 45, paragraph 41. Again, we're not going to go into details of paragraph 41. It's talking about some other types of fruit or honey, sugar, things that have to be checked for potential infestation. So again, to look at the SRK's website, the CRC app, to, like I mentioned in yesterday's episode, to see what's relevant nowadays, the way we have to check for different bugs, mites, and worms. Paragraph 42, the Shulchan Aruch points out that if you use a knife and you cut open to a fruit and you find a worm in the fruit, then this knife has to be cleaned very well because that worm isn't kosher. So make sure that knife is cleaned well, not just for cleanliness reasons, but also because of kosher reasons. Paragraph 43. This is very interesting. We're used to thinking about bugs in fruits, maybe some vegetables, nuts, herbs. We think of fresh herbs is likely to have bugs in it. But the Shulchan Aruch points out that sometimes fish have different worms in them. And this is actually a big thing, a big controversy in today about whether we have to be nervous about worms in different types of fish. This is called anisakis. This is Anisakis, Anisakis fish policy. The anisakis, I believe, is a type of infestation, type of worm that sometimes is found in fish. And so to see which type of fish is an issue, I recommend, again, just looking for the Star K website. If you Google Star K anisakis or Star K worms fish, you'll pop up with a document about which types of fish you have to be concerned about, which types of fish you don't have to be concerned about. Now, of course, anytime you're buying processed fish, you're buying tuna fish, anything in a can, of course, you have to be concerned and needs a kosher symbol. But let's say you're buying fresh fish, that's where this would fall into place. You're buying fresh fish, which would not have any other kosher concern because it's not processed at all. Do you have to be worried about these anisakis, at least these worms? That's where this list that the Starkey has about, which fish you do have to be concerned about it, which fish you don't have to be concerned about it. That's when you'd follow that list. Any questions, of course, feel free to reach out to me for clarification. Paragraph 44 discusses worms that are in cheese. So similar to what you saw about fruits, if the worms were born, the eggs hatched inside the cheese and the worms grew inside the cheese, as long as the worms didn't leave the cheese, from a halachic perspective, then they're considered kosher still, and you technically could eat that cheese. Again, it's not so relevant nowadays. I don't remember seeing cheese with worms in it, so it's not something we have to deal with on a regular basis. Paragraph 45. The Shulchan Aruch warns us over here. He says, you might think it's not a big deal. You're having some broccoli. So there's some extra protein. Let's say there's some aphids in the broccoli. So you got a little bit of extra protein. What's the big deal? He says, nope, you have to realize this is a very severe transgression. The Torah mentions a number of places to make sure to not eat creepy crawlies, to not eat worms or these bugs. And so it's a very severe transgression. He says, not only that, eating these things could affect our neshamas, affect our souls. It's called in Hebrew timtum halev. It stuffs up our hearts, meaning it affects our souls in major spiritual ways, whether it affects our spiritual growth, it affects our connection to God, our connection to Torah. So it's something we really have to be very careful about and make sure that we're following the guidelines that are necessary to ensure that you do not accidentally or carelessly eat any of these bugs, or these creatures, or these worms or aphids that are in these different fruits, vegetables, nuts, etc. Paragraph 46. The Shulchan Aruch discusses over here rabbi shopping. You go to one rabbi, you say, this happened in my kitchen. Is this food kosher or is it not kosher? And let's say the rabbi says it's not kosher, and you really want to eat that food. So you say, you know what? I don't like what that rabbi said. I can call up another rabbi. And you call up another rabbi and say, the second rabbi, is this food kosher? This is what happened in the kitchen. And that second rabbi says, yeah, it's not a problem. You can eat that food. Says the Shulchan Aruch, guess what? That food is still not kosher. Even though the second rabbi said it is kosher, even if his analysis was more correct than the first rabbi, once a competent halachic authority determines something isn't kosher, if the question was asked and the competent halachic authority handed down a ruling about it, then that food now takes on the status of non-kosher food, even if it was, the analysis wasn't fully accurate. Therefore, rabbi shopping isn't just not a good idea, it really could create some kosher problems. He says what you could do to get around it is tell this, if you think the first rabbi made a mistake, you want to speak to the second rabbi, tell the second rabbi that the first rabbi said XYZ, you have some reason to think he made a mistake, and then let the second rabbi figure out what to do, if he should consult with the first rabbi, not consult with the first rabbi. Maybe he'll tell you this isn't, there are exceptions to this, he might tell you this is an exception, even though the first rabbi said it's a problem. With that knowledge, so I'm still telling it's okay, then you can follow the second rabbi. But rabbi shopping is, could have its own issues. So once you get, decide before you ask a question who you want to ask it to, and once you get the answer, the ruling on it, then either stick with that ruling or discuss it more with that rabbi. And if you're not so comfortable for whatever reason with that first rabbi, then at least when you go to the second rabbi, make sure the second rabbi knows they had previously discussed it with the first rabbi. Chapter 47. Chapter 47 discusses wine that was touched by a non-Jew. So just to give a bit of the background of this, the Torah says wine touched by a non-Jew is not kosher because that non-Jew may have had in mind to use this wine in an offering of idolatry, to either serve this wine to an idol or use it in a celebration of his idol or his pagan god. And in such a case, that wine becomes not only prohibited to drink, it becomes prohibited to get any benefit from. Now, really, on a biblical level, this is only a prohibition if the non-Jew was an idol worshiper. However, nowadays, many non-Jews are not idol worshippers. Some might still be idol worshippers, but many aren't. And they might not believe in Judaism, but their religion is not necessarily idolatry, in which case, if they touch wine, it would not be a problem. It would not be a problem for us to drink and get benefit from it, on a biblical level at least. However, rabbinically, it still would be forbidden, because the rabbis, they outlawed all wine touched by a non-Jew because of a concern that there was intermarriage going on. And how does intermarriage happen? They have people get together, they drink together, they have a good time together, they become good buddies, and before you know it, their children are marrying each other. And this is happening going back already a couple thousand years. This was happening. We had Jewish children marrying non-Jewish children. So we saw earlier, we talked about food cooked by a non-Jew, bread baked by a non-Jew, that those things were prohibited because of concern. Those things were prohibited rabbinically in order to make it harder for Jews and non-Jews to socialize, in order to prevent intermarriage. So too with wine, if a non-Jew touches wine, even if the non-Jew is not really an idolater, still the fact that they touched it rabbinically will make the wine prohibited, because the rabbis want to make sure that we don't socialize too much with non-Jews in order that we do not come to a situation where there will be intermarriage, God forbid. However, because it's now only a rabbinical level, most of the situations of the wine touched by a non-Jew nowadays, therefore it does have some extra leniencies that the biblical level would not have. So paragraph 1 says the Shulchan Aruch that one is not supposed to use wine of a non-Jew. However, if there will be a tremendous loss, then there are situations in which it would be permitted. Again, it gets pretty technical, so make sure to speak to a rabbi if this happens, or let's say you get a shipment. You're a wine